Good evening, Tottenham fans, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boys Dave and Jack, joined by the one and only Johnny and also Sam as well. And we've plenty to talk about today. The ghost of Christmas past down there, it looks like. But what we are going to talk about today, guys, simply is the youth movement at Tottenham. Does Ange have genuine belief in it, or is it a board directive where it's basically coming from the board that he has to incorporate the youth into the plan? Also, we're acquiring a lot of young talents. Is this a succession plan for the future, which many people aim at the club for never having? Or is it a future profit scheme where we're looking to buy them and we're going to sell them on in future, which is something people also aim at the club, along with the news from Paul O'Keefe about 3 transfers expected in over the course of the rest of this window. So we have a number of things to talk about tonight. Please get your comments and your opinions in the comment section below. Last thing I will say before we go around and see how everybody is, it's only football. Let's respect each other. We can disagree, no problem, but we don't need to fall out over what is supposed to be the beautiful game. We're all Spurs fans. We should all respect each other because no one else respects us. So hopefully we can get a bit of that around here today. But look, let's kick off. We'll start with Johnny down there. Johnny, how are you, my man?
The wait for a transfer. Any news? It's been a long time. It's been a long, long time. Listen, I mean, look, we're all itching for it. They're out on tour. They're on the plane. And we're stranded here, waiting for some news. We'll no doubt watch them play with, a half-cocked team. We just want news now. Ange said he wanted them in early. He hasn't got them in early. So the team have failed, or Lange has failed, or whoever it is behind it at present. We're over halfway. Just deliver us a crumb, something to give us some hope. Okay,
that's all we're asking for.
That's all we're asking for, Dave.
Does the new signing, the young Korean kid, is that not enough of a crumb for you? It doesn't whet your appetite?
No, listen, look. I mean, it's exciting. What does it mean? It means more Koreans at the stadium. It means more shirt sales. It means the Korean chicken will not be coming off the menu down at the stadium restaurant. So it's all good. Listen, he's a talent. He's a talent. I posted something to you, Dave, as you know, a few days before the news came out. And is it a good signing? Yes, of course it is. But it's not one his current state that is going to impact our team currently. He's there till January. I see him as another, was he 18 now? Maybe a 19, 20-year-old. He might start to do something. He's exciting. He's quick, but I think it's one, again, for down the road. We'll come on to that, no doubt, in the conversation tonight.
Oh, look, we've plenty to talk about this whole youth setup. Hopefully I've devised some great questions and, by the end of it, we can come out with, what maybe the plan is going forward, because a lot of people are still scratching their head on what actually is the plan. But as you can see, Johnny seems to be a bit stressed. He's heading away tomorrow for some relaxation. So, he can get all of his stress out here now, and then he can go away tomorrow, hopefully stress-free, with a bit of news in the morning for him when he wakes up. That would be absolutely lovely. Sam, how are you keeping, my man?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. Just waiting for my holiday as well next Friday. Get away from this grey misery. I'm off to Cyprus to see my grandparents.
Nice.
Very nice.
Very nice. Very nice.
How long are you out there for?
I think it's 11 days, all in all. I haven't taken any holidays yet, so I'm back.
Within the next 2 or 3 years, you'll be able to go and spend 2 weeks outside the Tottenham Stadium in the new hotel, huh? In your themed room. In your
take
room.
a little trip across London.
Yeah, as long as I don't get in Don Bele room, I'll be happy,
Well, might get Ndombele back if we bring in Val Burger. You know what, a burger, you never know. But good to see that Sam and Johnny are keeping well. I know a lot of you enjoyed this panel last week. This is hopefully something we're going to put out there most weeks for you as we can across the season. Hopefully you enjoy yourself. And last but not least, we're going to check in on Jacko. Jacko, how are you, my man?
Doing okay, Dave. Outside of Spurs, I'm having an absolute mess with some packages that I'm still being sent back to myself from New York. But Johnny is saying he's operating on crumbs. You and I do a very good job on operating on crumbs on this channel. Whatever it's a transfer, news, or whatever it can be, we try our best with it. So we'll try our best with these crumbs, Dave. Hopefully we get some big kahunas sometime soon.
No, 100%. Look, that would be nice. It's many people hope really that, you know, we've got 2 or 3 big bombers, bombers I call them, you know, big transfers lined up, big bad boys. Let's wait and see, you know. Is that the plan, or has it gone away because we haven't recouped the fees maybe we thought we weren't going to go were for individuals? So very interesting, lots to have a talk about. Now, guys, as you know, it's usually customary at every stream that I sort of welcome everybody in. However, there's so many in already. I'm absolutely miles behind, and I'll be here for a whole hour getting through it. So I just want to say massive thank you to everybody that has decided to tune in already, and hopefully many more join us on our journey this evening. But look, you know, we will get to this just quickly from Davy Shire, and he's gifted out 10 channel memberships. Let's see who they have gone to. Give me 1 second, Davey. I'll find out who
I can take it for you there, Dave. Thank you so much, Davy Shire. Absolute legend. Really, really generous to us, sir. And he's given it out to Liam, Leo Starman Recordings, Darren West, Cathal Brown, Kevin Ferguson, Stee24-7, The Diddler, and then Miran Jit, I believe, as well. Liam, Konami, Callum Roche, and I believe that would be it. And all of you guys, please do thank Davy Shire. Thank you, sir. Absolute legend. And please take advantage of his generosity. Fan show this coming Monday. If you'd like to have a chat about any of the recent transfers or hopefully the upcoming transfers, feel free to do so. And also, we have a preseason game this weekend. If you wanted to get your thoughts in on that, come and join us for the fan show.
Big up, Davey. Sure, really appreciate the support. You know, he was over there on Outside Cockerel with me there for the last, 2 hours. So big up, Davey Shire. Hopefully I haven't burned the ears off you yet, my man. I really appreciate support. And people, feel free to, pass them onwards as well. We like to be good here and uplift each other in this community. So feel free to pass them on. Just a harmless potato member for 7 months. Davey Shire appreciation bonus member milestone chat. He's dedicating his milestone chat to Davey Shire. Fair play. Just a harmless potato. What an absolute legend, and good to see you tuning in. And then Davey Shire also with a 20 Australian dollar donation. But I don't see another comment in here. Maybe it's to Peter, his friend. Yeah, maybe it's to Peter. Why not? We'll give that one to Peter because there's no other comment. If there was supposed to be something underneath, Davey, as always, just put it in the chat and we will crack on with it. But guys, I'm going to keep welcoming you as we go along. It's just I want to make best use of the boys' time. So I'll keep welcoming people as we go along. But we'll hand it over to Jack and he's going to get the 2 boys involved here.
Wow, Dave's been extra efficient here today, so we might as well pass this one off to, I'm going to go to Johnny first. Spurs are set to sign another young talent, Johnny. You may be already aware, Jan Min-hyuk. He joins a long growing list of very talented players at Spurs, but like the rest of them, he's relatively unproven and pretty inexperienced. Have Spurs put too much emphasis in your mind on buying this type of young talent, the unproven kind of inexperienced kind? Do you think we put too much emphasis on that this summer?
100% not. This is not a summer project. This is a 2-year project. We're 2 years into the project. As I think I mentioned last week, I've been going on about this for 2 years. The directive was get rid of the dross, get rid of out the academy, the Instagram kids, take a picture, look, I'm at Spurs, get rid of them. If you're not good enough, you're never going to make it, clear them out. Better to have 10 kids than 25 kids, of which only 10 are any good, right? Get rid, fill the academy, find the best 15 to 19-year-olds, and then also to find players, young talent, 25, 27 max for the first team. Does it happen overnight? No. So when I'm telling people what's going to happen here, people aren't interested. We live in a now generation. It used to be the day where you used to save up and buy something. Now it's instant gratification. You go out and you whack your credit card down and you buy it instantly and worry about paying for it another day. Well, you can't really do that with football, with the FFP and PSR. So the only way for Spurs to compete, if we're not going to be buying 50, 60 million pound players, is to invest in the youth. And everyone's moaning about it. I remember the same people moaning when they said, who's this Papa Sarr? Who's this Destiny Udogie, right? And they'll be saying it, why have we spent 2 million on Will Lancashire? This was groundbreaking. Spurs spending £2 million on a 16-year-old, right? Never heard of, right? Never heard of. Everyone in the country wanted him. The problem is it doesn't show in the first team, and that's all that everyone's worried about. Is, you know, it's jam tomorrow. They want it now. And, you know, if you look at, you know, we have the same thing when we signed Vicario. It should have been Raya. Mickey van der Ven, it should have been Tapsoba. There's always someone it should have been. Trust the process. We've had years. Listen, I'm actually only 29, right? This is me. That's a Spurs supporter. This is what it's done to me. But no, joking aside, you know, I think people can start to see the green shoots of this program that was put into place 2 years ago now, starting to come through. Whether it's Lancashire, whether it's Donnelly, whether it's Mikey Moore and others, and Lancashire, and then, you know, yes, we bought Archie Gray. But for those who don't understand, people won't be saying who's Archie Gray by Christmas, okay? I have 100% confidence in him. I've wanted him for nigh on a year now. And, you know, Bergvall as well. Yes, he's only 18. But as we saw in the Euros, if you're good enough, you're old enough. And I just think I understand why people are impatient. Because what we'd like to see is both aspects of the programme being operated in. So if we were doing this and we were also signing those 3 players for the first team, people would have a completely different outlook on it. But right now, it seems to be the focus is all on kids. So it's panic stations. I understand that, but trust the process. You know, the club is trying. We just aren't that club that's going to be spending £70 million on players right now, unfortunately.
Can I ask you a follow-up question on that, Johnny? Where do you think the club have lost the fans along the way in getting behind this then? Has it been communicating the message? You know, have they not communicated at all? You know, is it because fans are impatient because of the lack of success under this ownership? I mean, why aren't fans getting on board? Because you're right, it has been a clear directive since Paratici's come in at this football club.
Yeah.
You know, that he spoke about it, that this was what Spurs were going to do, go after the hot players, young players across Europe, get them in here.
Right.
So where have the club lost the fans along the way then behind this?
Trust is gone. The trust, years and years and years of dross, years and years of being let down, years and years of no trophies. We've heard it all before. We've seen it all before. I remember when I said I felt that this could be our class of 92, and I didn't mean go on and win a treble. I mean Spurs class of 92, you know, the best group of players that I've ever seen at this club, whether they've been homegrown or, you know, they've been bought in at 15, 18 years of age. It doesn't matter. We need to see a conveyor belt of talent come through this club. And if you think Spurs are going to go out and beat something by going out and spending 50 million on a player, we're never going to get there. We are never going to get there. So let's supplement it with great talent. And if you can't see that Bergvall, Gray, Mikey Moore, Lancashire, and the other kids that we bought, Adoji, Papasar, you know, these are top talent. We've had look at the squad that we've had. We've had a squad of players that isn't worth 2 bob. We can't sell anyone. No one's worth any money. Now look through that squad since Parachi got here, and then look at how much that squad is worth. How much is Romero worth? How much is Mickey van der Ven worth? How much is Adoji worth? You could go on. So I, like anyone else, I'm probably more impatient than anybody, but I can see the bigger. I can see the bigger picture. It doesn't stop me being angry and frustrated that we still haven't got those signings in. But it's trust. Trust is broken, guys. That's the problem. Yeah. And you know, once you cheated on your girlfriend, right? She ain't gonna trust you anymore, right?
Very true.
Sam, what do you think, man? He's called it a 2-year project. Johnny has this youth development, this emphasis on the youth talent.
2 years ago. Yeah, started 2 years.
started 2 years ago, but it's not something that's going to go away anytime soon, is what I gather from you, Johnny. What do you make of that, Sam? Have Spurs put too much emphasis on this type of project, though?
I wouldn't say too much. There is a lot of emphasis on it, which I can understand why people are quite concerned by the lack of what they call ambitious signings, right? Although, you know, if you put a spin on it, these are ambitious signings because in a few years, you let these kind of players slip through the cracks, they end up becoming sort of like Archie Gray figures. And then people are like, why didn't we sign them? We should have put the money on them, you know? Yeah. I think personally, they're sort of making up for lost time. You know, we've had these so-called projects under Mourinho and Ange, and we haven't really progressed any of our youth system besides a bit of Paratici magic in the background, right? So I'm not disheartened. I'm a little bit disappointed, like Johnny said, that we're already on the tour now, and we haven't actually signed anyone who goes into the first team squad, let alone the first team itself, right? So look, I mean, all of us are probably scrolling through Twitter and social media all the time, every day, pretty much, with work being a bit slow now, thinking, when are we going to announce so and so, right? I don't even know who we seriously are looking at, because every day there's a different rumor about Eze, there's a different rumor about Tony. So we'll see. Other stuff's gone a bit quiet. This Doué kid, no one's talking about at all now. I guess we've sort of signed his transfer replacement, which maybe makes sense why we didn't really pursue him. But look, yes, I want signings in, but I also want long-term success. I know we've not seen any success, especially me. But I do want to know that the club is in good stead going forward, so that we actually have a bit of a plan in place, because the last 5 years we haven't, let's be honest.
Well, look, I have no problem undertaking this. You like yourself and Johnny, to a large degree. You know, I accepted it when Paratici walked in here. For me, I sort of washed my hands, you know, with what has happened before. And I sat there and I said to myself, at some point, I have to give someone a chance to come in here and try and rebuild this and put the right things in place. And I chose to give Paratici that opportunity, because everyone that knows me, I didn't rate Steve Hitchett or his recruitment. And I think a lot of it set back Tottenham, you know, a good five years, or at least that period that we're after being through from a lot of his shit recruitment, especially under Jose Mourinho. It took us a long time to try and get that off the books, you know. Clubs haven't wanted to pay the fees we were asking for, but also the performance they were putting in for Tottenham, there was no real resale value on them, and it has held the club back. And I do think Paratici has done a very good job of rebuilding this, and people forget that he has to also act within the rules of what Daniel Levy and the parameters that he sets on him. And he's done that better than most other director of footballs that we've had so far. The only thing is we're missing now is just sprinkling a couple of talents to it. And I think if we sprinkle that to it, I think it would alleviate many fans' concerns around this transfer window. I actually think you sprinkle the right players on it, like a Tony, like an Eze. I actually think you get many of your fans back behind the project, back behind the club, pushing into next season, pushing on. It's just whether the board want to come to the party. You know, everyone else within the club operate off what Daniel Levy and the parameters he sets. Ange Postecoglou right now is doing better than what Jose and Conte has done. And he's a good goal. He's more of a good goal between what the fans want and also, you know, to be able to appease the board. So for me, I think we have a lot of the right structures in place. Now it's just about adding the right players to that. Look, I'm a big believer that age is only a number at the end of the day. If you're good enough, you're old enough. But with the amount of talent that we've got, in the forward areas, it is just waiting for one or two players to come in and just sort of lead them guys forward, give them that leg up that they need. Because I am concerned the amount of youth coming in, and it's not really being balanced out. And that's probably where I think many fans are concerned. I don't think they actually have too many concerns about Tottenham trying to buy the next star, like Johnny and Sam were talking about, you know, getting in there before they start costing 70-80 million. Jack, for instance, Kavicha, you done a scout report, you know, way before he got his move to Napoli. And then all of a sudden, look at the price that you're talking about for someone like him. So Tottenham do have, like you said, Johnny, Tottenham do have to try and get ahead of that and bring in the best young players. Now it's just about, doing what we haven't done actually really too well, which is actually buy the big players to sprinkle it with. And maybe that's where the caution could be coming from right now, because when we've tried it with Lo Celso and Ndombele, people like that, it hasn't worked out the way we have. So maybe that's holding them back right now, because they know they have to get these next couple of big money signings right, or they've lost the majority of the fans.
I can see how it's quality? Yeah, Johnny.
I was just going to say, do we want quantity or quality? I would rather we only sign 2 more players if they were 2 players that really made the difference to this club. Our club has been riddled with a whole pile of players that are average, or average and going backwards. There is no point in that. I don't see the point in that. Look at last season. I think we need to just look back at where we were. Destiny, huge improvement. Mickey van der Ven, huge improvement. Vicario, huge improvement. Okay. Romero now playing better because he's playing with much better players. He's not playing with Eric Dyer. Porro is an improvement, right? I could go on. My point is that, we have improved. I think the weakest part of our game, quite honestly, is creativity, because I think Maddison so far has been a huge flop. What anyone wants to tell me, 4 goals in 28 games, forget it. And the attack, that was the one thing that we were all worried about, was our defence. We thought our attack would be okay, and it's been the complete opposite. So I think, if we could get that, get this thing out of our heads and see the journey, look behind us, where we come from, and the crap that we had, and the deadwood that was in this squad, and what we got looking at us now. The depth isn't as good as we need it. That's for sure. We can all agree on that. But I can see the positives. I'm more eager than anybody that we fast forward this project. I wish we were in year 3 or 4 of this project right now, because it's infuriating. I've been waiting in 30 years, right? So, but I understand everyone's frustration, but there is some sort of silver lining here, but it's hard to have patience.
I think, yeah, exactly right, Johnny. I think you're allowed to be frustrated, but then you can also, if Spurs fans can, it's hard to ask, but if they can also try to see some of the signs of improvement, some of the signs of the positive kind of future that's yet to come, really. But it's a reflection, I think, these young signings, these talented signings, it's a reflection of how poor our recruitment was beforehand under Steve Hitchen. The guy wasted well over 300 plus million on first team players, but he also at the same time pretty much completely ignored the academy. He didn't do much of a good job of bringing in young players to boost the academy. And he also didn't have, it looked like, the right guys in charge to help develop some of those younger talents that we already did have in the academy, to either get minutes or get moves abroad to develop, that sort of type of thing. Where since Paratici has come in, even since Johan Lange has come in, and we'll get to him later in the show, I do think we can see a lot of signs of improvement when it comes to the academy, when it comes to the younger profiles of players, but also too, even just first team signings have just been a whole lot better. I think it's just hard for us as a club to be able, since we're not big spenders, we're not kind of the big, kind of a, just splash the cash, when we need to type of club. We're going to chip away at this sort of thing slowly and methodically, and not as quickly as I think us as a fan base would like. But I think we can still try to see some of the signs that we have been getting it right. We haven't been doing it quickly enough, maybe in plenty of people's eyes, which I could probably agree with, but there have been good signs of better recruitment, better understanding of where the areas in the squad need improving. And Spurs in the last 2 or 3 years, you'd say, since Paratici and Lange, have improved the first team, the first starting 11, but also have improved the academy as well as the future talents that are yet to come and be embedded into it. And that takes a long time. You can't do it all in one window. I wish we could do it even quicker and even better than we already are. But I think it's going to take a long time, and it's only going to really be fully seen, or maybe even fully realized by the fan base. I mean, still only 2 or 3 years from now. And that's hard to ask, the fan base. It's hard to tell them that, it's going to take 2 or 3 years before we really see all the fruition of it.
When you see these people playing FIFA, right, and, Football Manager, right, the dream is there. Do you know what I mean? Like, they play, I come in and I see the kids playing FIFA. Like, who you got in your Spurs team? I got this one, I got that one, I got that one, right? You know, it's like a fantasy team, right?
Yeah.
And we all dream one day that we will have all these fantasy players, you know, and, you know, we get carried away, whether it be Football Manager or FIFA, or when you're playing fantasy football, whatever, and you name your team Tottenham Flop Spurs or whatever it may be. And that never leaves. That never leaves. You know, since I was a kid and we were signing the players and the big names then, we signed a lot more big name players in those days. But we don't sign marquee. We don't sign marquee players anymore. And, you know, I find that as much of a frustration as anyone else. For me, the last big signing that I can think of was Van der Vaart, probably. That was a shock. That was a name. I can't. Maybe some people can think of someone else. Don't tell me Adebayor, please.
Someone will say Ndombele. There'll be some Ndombele fan out there, you know. Someone will say him. But, you know, and I'm probably just summarising Johnny's point here, but I do think there has to be a degree of trust in the recruitment process. But, you know, Jack, Johnny and Sam, the boys are right. The recruitment is getting better. And, okay, they're not star names, but I think we'll agree we're pulling in a lot of gems, and maybe we're doing it a little bit differently, where it's more so we're bringing in what's suited to the attributes that we need rather than maybe going for the name. And I could get it can be frustrating, but, you know, with a couple more additions to this, I think we'll start finally coming out the other end and seeing the fruition. And I think many people are well aware we're only about 3 or 4 players short from really sort of kicking on, going from 5th to maybe trying to get into a title challenge this season. And that's where maybe the frustration is coming in. But guys, we've got a few super chats that we're going to dish out, you know, that we're going to chat about, and then we're going to kick on and get on to the next talking point. We've got this from Steve D, member for 21 months. Evening, lads. Good to see you, Steve D. Hopefully you're keeping well, and really appreciate the longevity of the support. Absolutely phenomenal from you, Steve D. Big yourself up, my man. Absolute legend. And we've got the one and only Paul Markey. Paul, hopefully you're keeping well. You're still living up in Dublin. He says, I'm irked we are sitting on our thumbs whilst United go for Ugarte, who is the answer to our midfield sort of CDM problem. I mean, look, Johnny, Sam, we'll let you two, you know, have your say on this. Should Spurs be challenging for someone like Ugarte? I know many fans of football are well aware of this guy and what he can bring to this Tottenham team and how good he actually is. He's just maybe not being used in the right way at PSG, but he could be a game changer for whatever team goes to sign him. Should we be in the market for someone like this?
Look, I think the concern is, and it kind of leads this question as well, we're watching other teams who, you know, United have fallen off in recent years, and other teams like Villa and Newcastle are sort of coming out of effectively nowhere in the past few seasons to semi-challenge us for that top 6 spot. And I know people, they say they don't want to be a top 6 team. They want to be, you know, fighting higher up in the league, but we are where we are right now, right? And I think the concern is that, you know, you watch Villa sell Moussa Diaby for 60 million or whatever plus add-ons, and then they go and spend that money on Onana. And you might not think Onana is necessarily the answer to our midfield, right? But he was definitely in the question, right? So I think it's concerning in that regard that these other teams might leave us in the dust if we don't start to get our act together a bit quicker than we are. I'm not throwing my toys out the pram, but like we obviously, there is obviously interest from fans in Ugarte. I've not really seen him play much football, but he was obviously quite hyped. PSG were, it was supposed to be quite a big coup that they signed him. So I'm not necessarily, you know, going to cry that United are going for Ugarte if we have a plan, but do we have a plan for players that can come in and influence them now? Because like you say, our team isn't that far off actually starting to do something. We might not be challenging Man City for the league, but we can challenge for some of these domestic cups, right? We just need a bit more squad depth, a few youngers to get blooded in, and then we have a chance to actually go and win something for the first time in my life. So we need to see something going forward that actually shows us that we are a serious club and we're not going to do the quote unquote Spursy thing and let our chance pass by again, right?
Yeah, fair point. And in Ugarte's case, I think he was a player that Spurs were interested in while he was still at Sporting, but he might have been stylistically, this is, maybe just my opinion versus yours, Paul's, but I think he might have been stylistically a bit better when we still had an Antonio Conte, because he's such a hard worker. He's kind of that box-to-box type of presence. I think Ugarte, he's really good at winning the ball back as well. Just that sort of hard-nosed midfielder despite his size, where I think nowadays, I think what Ange is looking for are actually these really technically sound midfielders that can be able to break down teams. And I'm not even totally sure, despite how brilliant Ugarte is, that's exactly what we need. I think we need someone more in that technical kind of build, someone who is kind of similar to what we have already with Madison, Bergvall, these really talented technical players that are good at picking up the ball off of center backs, looking to try to break down teams. And Ugarte, for me, was always kind of that steel type of midfielder, that guy who has that bite to him in midfield, not always the most creative of types. But then again, he had a brilliant season or two at Sporting, as well as he's very good for Uruguay, as you already know, Paul, being one of our South American residential experts as well. Big up to you, sir. And we also have
I loved him out there. I loved him at Uruguay. I've got to be honest with you. I mean, when I saw him in the World Cup, he was standout player. I think he got sent off one game. But he's got that bite. He was on my list to come to Spurs. No two ways about it. He was in there because I felt like we needed a 6 at the time. But it passed us by. It seems like every top 6 passes us by. We need someone that can screen that back 4. Let's not beat around the bush. If he's not going to change that to a 2 at the back, we're going to get exposed over and over and over again. I didn't see anything different even at Sheffield United on the last game of the bloody season, right? Where Cameron Archer, if he'd had any sort of finishing boots on, could have easily stuck a couple away before he'd even got going. QPR had their chances on the weekend. I know you can't read too much into it, but I need to see something change. And the only way something's going to change is if you have a destroyer or someone who's sitting in that. If you're not going to change it in front of that back line. Personally, I like to see the 3. Ugarte for me would be that person. Also like Geerstruder. There are other players out there, but I fear if he doesn't buy a 6 or he doesn't buy that destroyer. Look, for me, I'm looking at these players. I like my players who are nasty. I'm old school, right? Richarlison's nasty, Porro's nasty, Lolo's nasty, Romero's nasty. You need to have that thing. Brennan Johnson, to me, it looks like he's goes shopping with his mummy on the weekends, right? Okay, lovely guy.
Nothing wrong with that, Johnny.
No, nothing wrong with that. Lovely. No offense when you want to go shopping with their mummy on the weekends. But I just like when you're playing Premier League football, you need to be, a 50-50 challenge. You need to mean it. And I just think we got great technical players, great players with the ball. I just need someone who's going to come in and destroy you. And when you go out on that pitch, when you're going down that tunnel, I'm going to have a hard game today. And I don't think there's anyone that a team should fear currently in that midfield as a destroyer, in my opinion. That's my opinion.
Well, it sounds like Johnny's in agreement here with you, Paul, when it comes to Ugarte, or just that type of steel-like midfielder that might be more needed in the midfield than technically more technical players. Sorry for using the word technical so many times, Paul. I'll try to cool off on it.
Technically insane. Technically mad.
Right. Appreciate your support, Paul. And like I said, you're much more of a residential kind of an expert on those South American players than maybe some of us are. Davey Shire says, Dave and Jack, brilliant content. Johnny well said, youth is the way to go. Come on, you Spurs. We will win. Patience. That's the thing, though, Dave, isn't it? Is that the word patience is so hard to tell Spurs fans after so many years of Levy and so many projects, so many rebuilds that we've tried to rationalize, that we've tried to get behind. It's not really the best of words always, but it's the one that we have to continue to use, I guess.
I mean, look, it's been a word that my old lad's been saying to me all my life, and it's not a word that I'm going to pass on to my kids. It's not the world for patience anymore. Everyone wants everything now, and that's ultimately what's leading to, the frustrations. And plus, it's been so long. It's been many decisions that have been business-based rather than football-based for a period of time, which didn't help to be able to build the stadium and all the other stuff going on. So that's where the frustration leads to. And then, when you see Arsenal getting back up there, it sort of leads to more frustration even more. So, look, it is what it is. We're going to have to show a bit of patience. I would argue we are seeing stuff within the club that shows we're on the right trajectory. We're just not maybe doing it as quick as our finances or the scope in our finances that we have to spend would allow us to do it. And, but then again, that's where the frustration comes in around the chairman, isn't it? So,
is Arsenal's team, like, when you actually look at their team on paper, they've got depth in certain areas, but when you look all around the squad, they are still only a handful of injuries away from having a bit of a crisis. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to do down. They've had a very good last 2 seasons, as much as it pains me to say that, right? But the Arteta's on this mission of signing 1 million defenders and building this like defensively sound system, which is, if that's the way you want to go, that's fine, right? But other than sort of Trossard coming off the bench, or if they start Trossard, Martinelli, they don't really have a great deal of attacking threat off the bench, in my opinion. And their starters up front, other than Saka and Jesus on his day, which doesn't often come around, in my opinion, I'm not
Martinelli.
sure that. Yeah, Martinelli is another one of these players that, like, in my opinion, looks really dangerous, and then doesn't really. He always sort of flatters to deceive. I feel like defenders are scared of him, but he doesn't really do anything once he does go around them.
What's interesting? What you were saying there, Matt. I was telling someone a few weeks ago. In fact, it was in the paper. I think two or 3 days ago now, that Arsenal are now going to invest multiple millions on their academy, investing in youth to bring it through. In fact, they've just stolen the Manchester City worldwide recruitment guy for their youth. So they realise now, probably looking at us and some of the other teams, and the way the FFP is going and PSR, which is what I mentioned before, it is now more imperative than ever that you produce your own talent. And if it means investing at 13, 14, 15, 16, up to 19, and investing a couple of million here, 2 million there, it's well worth it. Because if you start unearthing the gems, what they've done, Arsenal, is while we were sleeping, they were taking all of our players right from on our doorstep, the youth players. And they've had a lot of youth players that are coming in, and where they've had the advantage over us. They had so many players coming through their youth that they could supplement it with an 80 million, a 70 million, 100 million pound signing, because they had so many positions to fill. Plus, they've managed to sell players that we could only dream of. Alex Iwobi, 35 million. There are other players there, and right now they're trying to sell Nketiah, Smith Rowe, Reece Nelson, and they're all worth money. We're selling players that we're trying to scrape to get 5 million, 8 million. That's not where we need to be. But they're ahead of the curve. We were asleep. Now we're waking up. And we just got to hope for the best, that we can supplement the kids that are coming through and the signings, the young signings that we've had, please God, with 2 or 3 top signings, whether it's a Chiesa, whether it's a Neto, whether it's, whoever it may be. I'm going to go through the whole list, be here all day, but we need them.
Yeah. And then also in a perfect world, like Johnny is saying there, Davy Shire, the guys that don't end up making it, these younger talents that we're bringing in, you'd still think that they would be highly rated and still highly looked after by a lot of clubs out there. And then you can still benefit from being able to move them on for some money without them being thrown in that deadwood category, which we've had plenty of, I'd say, in the past. Daniel Larson, member for 27 months, absolute legend of this channel, saying big up chat and panel. That's all I have to say. Well, Daniel, I'm going to use you as an example because Davy Shire has gifted out so many fan show memberships here. Do what Daniel Larson has done. He's been going on these fan shows for nearly 3 years, I think, at this point, Daniel Larson. So he's a good example of someone who has, I think, enjoyed it and also is shown to be a success story out of it. So please, everybody, take advantage of his generosity. Davy Shire, he's gifted out 5 more to Nitro DJ, C Max, Martin Walton. Would love to have a chat with you, Martin Walton, at some point. And then Tony Rodriguez, who I know has also been around these Spurs channels for a very long time. Big up to you, Davey Shire. Thank you for the support, mate. And please, everybody, take advantage of it. And then Davey Shire saying, sort the chaff out, Johnny. Madison needs to get back down to earth. James Madison, someone who is probably not called out enough, I think, in your opinion.
Listen,
Johnny.
I've brought this up many times. Listen, I'm not the greatest fan of Brennan Johnson. I often call him Brenda Johnson, right? I hope he smashes it this season. I hope he goes on to be a top player. But the abuse that he's got from fans, and even myself at times, you know, before he added a little bit of bite to it. But James Madison has got a free pass, and I'd like to know why he's got free pass. I'm not interested in the 9 games he played well before he got injured. I'm interested in the 18 games where he scored 1 goal in 18 games, 3 goals before he went off, and 1 since he's come back. He needs to step up this season. He needs to be influential. I don't want to see him dropping deep. He needs to be up front, behind those front 2, 3, 1, whoever it may be. But he's got a lot to answer, so I absolutely agree, David.
Yeah, when it comes to Madison in general, JV Shire, I think Dave and I probably at one point this last season tried our very best to, you know, not just continue to call out Brendan Johnson. Sometimes we tried to do. We occasionally laid some criticism on the doorsteps of Madison, because in his case, we felt like that the number 10 role in Ange Postecoglou's system isn't exactly the hardest of positions. You get a lot of service, you get a lot of opportunities to pick up the ball and try to make things happen. And it just felt like he would go a bit hiding in games, or even when he did have passing options available to him, he would actually just give it back to the player he had just received it from, or ended up just giving kind of a normal sideways pass and didn't take that sort of onus on the game like a number 10 should, or like we've seen other number 10s in the Premier League this last season do. I think we gave examples like Morgan Gibbs-White. We gave examples like Eze is another one too. There are plenty of other. Cole Palmer is one of Dave's favorite examples of guys that just no matter what, even if there were no passing options available, they still made something happen. They still tried something. They still had that sort of dare in their game. And Madison was one of those that we just felt like wasn't daring enough at times in games. Just
you know what that is, though, Jack? The problem is, Jack, you know, when he played for Leicester, he likes to operate in space. And unfortunately, as I mentioned right at the beginning, and when I was talking to people, Ange's system is almost like a vacuum-packed midfield. It's like Piccadilly Circus. There's no space to operate. So what does he do? He drops back. He drops deep. We've seen it time and time again. He can't get on the ball. He drops deep. He is not a deep-lying playmaker, I believe. He operates best behind the 9 or behind the front 3, whichever you want to call him. I don't like seeing him there. And the deeper he dropped, the worse his game got. And I don't know how they're going to eradicate that this season. And I can see a situation where I know Bergval's more of an 8, but I can see a situation that, you know, if he doesn't step up, that he could find himself on the bench.
Do you know what? Just to add to that, you know, because I was going to use Bergval as my reference. What we've seen from Bergval so far in the 2, you know, games that he's played and the minutes that he's had is, you know, that's what I want to see James Madison do. Get on the ball,
Correct.
demand it, you know, be the sort of tempo setter in that midfield. Decide when it's time to slow it down, when it's time to quicken it up. But anytime Bergval got that ball in the final third, he's feeding it through from Mikey Moore, Lancashire, runners like that. And for me, that's what I want to see Madison get to. And he's going to have to work it out himself, where he can get on that ball in this system. You know, do you switch him to the 8? Because I'd argue there's more room over the right-hand side than there is the left, with Doji on the left back, the way they're asked to play a bit more than the right back. So I think there's a bit more space for him on the right-hand side of that midfield, maybe to operate in the 8. So be interested to see what we do with James Madison going forward. But if Bergval continues on the trajectory, Madison could be in trouble.
But I think it kind of ties in with what Johnny was saying about the packing of the midfield as well, though, because I do think, and I've said it before, I'm not the biggest fan. I don't dislike it of the inverting fullbacks. If we had a bit more sort of width and impetus going that way, you would see, I think, Madison playing more daring balls, maybe over the top to the advancing likes of Destiny and Porro, right? And that's where I feel like we're kind of wasting the fullbacks as well as Madison a little bit with the system, because we're not really getting crosses in. like you said it enough times, you don't think that Johnson is consistent enough to put the ball in the cross. Werner, he's not a left-footed player, I don't think, and so his crosses are also inconsistent. So we do need something. Or even if it's not going to be the fullbacks, I think that, not to lessen the criticism that we're giving Maddison, but I do think that there's a lack of like braveness from the attacking players at times to actually make that busting run through the defense. There was, what I will give Werner is credit, there was a lot of games or moments last season where it looked like Destiny and other players didn't actually want to play Werner in behind when he was making that run. And I remember sitting in the stands a few times thinking, why the hell are we not playing this guy in behind? They're just giving us space wide because they know that we want to go inside. So why wouldn't you mix it up in variation and actually be a little bit less predictable to play against?
Yeah, it's a good point, Sam. I think at one point it felt like certain players actually did want to just continue with the upbeat tempo that this, Ange Postecoglou's system employs, right? Where if you end up causing the game to go end to end, players can get quite tired, and maybe certain players get a little frustrated by that because they want to have a break at some point. So they knew if they played Werner in behind, it was maybe a likely chance he didn't end up finishing it. And then all of a sudden you're running back towards your own goal to try to catch up from a different counterattack. And that's what I wonder, is maybe certain players stopped believing in kind of the end-to-end nature that the Ange system was providing. And Werner, as much of a chaos merchant in a bad way that he is, he's kind of good at that. He is good at making those runs in behind, questioning the defender and making them have to drop back. And people just didn't really, I guess, give him those opportunities. I can agree with that. And sometimes Maddison was a similar player, that he had players running in behind. I just don't think he always wanted to play them for whatever reason, or maybe he just didn't even back himself or trust himself to be doing it. Another player that we're going to talk about here, Johnny and Sam, is Kulusevski. Paul Markey saying, I'd play Kulu in the 10 every day ahead of Maddison. By the way, Sky reporting Tony to Woolwich, very close.
Oh, well, first of all, I'll have a quick discussion on Kulu. Look, when it comes to Kulu, I actually think him and Maddison as two number 10s has actually sort of worked over the course of pre-season. And I think against teams, lower down in the Premier League where we struggled at times with the creativity, I think that's the way to go with Kulu and Maddison. I think Kulu looks so much better in there with better technical players around them, like Maddison and Son. You see, the way he's linking up with them, combining, the what sort of flicking around the corner, the one-touch football. It's good to watch. And he's always said himself, he sees himself more centrally. I'd argue, I still think there's a great striker in there if we put him up there and gave him that opportunity. But I think we're going to see a much different Kulu this season. I truly believe in it. I think, with Vernon Johnson, we haven't seen them hit that heights that we're hoping they hit. With Kulu, we've seen him hit them. So for me, I think we can get him back to that. I think it's just about becoming more comfortable in this Ange system. It's clear he doesn't suit idealistically what Ange wants out wide. He wants blistering pace and stuff like that. So for me, when you look at Kulu, I think he's done a good job in that number 10. I'd argue more creative than Maddison. He's come out with 2 assists. He could have had more if others would have finished their dinner, Paul Markey. And you look at his body shape, right? Big, tall, strong, physical guy. You want them sort of guys in the middle with also the technical ability, because they're hard to knock off the ball. They're hard to play against. So for me, I definitely agree with that. In terms of Tony moving to Arsenal, I mean, that's just shambolic. I just hope we get Gyökeres in. Then that's my only saviour. I really like Gyökeres. Imagine having him, Kulusevski, and Bergvall, the little Swedish triangle. The Northern Lights up there up front. That would be absolutely brilliant, feeding each other. But it is devastating to hear that Tony to Arsenal is close, and we're sitting here still waiting for that star striker to come in.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet on Tony going there, though, would you? Tony might, but I don't think. The other thing is, only Spurs could be even contemplating signing Ivan Toney and then picturing him in a BetMGM bloody shirt, right? I mean, priceless memes all day long. Listen, for me, there's a lot of things that just don't make sense. Like, very quickly go back to Destiny. Destiny's strength, if you watch them at Udinese, which I did, all right, he hugged that touchline, picked up the ball and drove down that flank, cut in and unleashed the shot. He was absolutely deadly. I don't know why we don't overload those wings with Werner and Destiny, constantly running. Whoever's at that right side is going to get destroyed with the two of them constantly powering past them. But we don't. He cuts inside, and when he cuts inside, you're stopping his flow. He can't break free and run free. And I find it really, really infuriating that, you know, he has to play that position. And as for Kulu for me, as soon as Ange signed, I said he'll never be able to play out on that right. Doesn't suit him. And I honestly thought the only place he can play is a 10. But I've got to be honest with you, there were so many times he was given that opportunity and he let himself down. He did not shine in that position. And there was no reason for Ange to turn around and said, you know what, Maddison's been out all these games. You've made that position your own. He didn't do that. I hear what you're saying about pre-season. He needs to work on that weak foot. I do not want to see him check him back. Be brave, for God's sake. What happened to bravery? Drive forward, and if you draw the foul, you win a free kick. This horseshoe football round the edge of the box for 10, 15 minutes is infuriating. Drive in, Johnson, Werner, draw the foul, put them under pressure. Free kicks, yellow cards, wins game, pressure, overlap. But teams allow us. Play there all you like. Play that horseshoe football. We'll stand off you and we'll hit you on the counter-attack.
I just want to say one more thing on Kulu. And then, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to give one each to everybody because we're getting behind here with 3 left. And then we're going to crack on with more questions. Is when it comes to Kulu, and, you know, I've seen a couple of people have made the comments underneath my video that I put out this morning because I picked Kulu as well, where they make the reference that he's so one-footed. And look, agreed, 100% he is. But so was Werner, so was Johnson, so was Maddison. We haven't seen any of them do anything on their weak foot spectacular. And I just think if you were to play Kulu out on the right wing, it's imperative you instruct Porro to go on the outside, take players with him, which frees up the space for him to cut inside. So I agree with you in terms of the fullbacks, Johnny. But, you know, and I agree with you that, you know, ideally players should be 2-footed or should be competent on 2 foot at a professional level. It actually used to be the standard back in the day. I don't know where that standard has dropped.
Or at least attempt to do it.
At least attempt to do it, yeah. And it would make him a better player, Sheffield. You know?
He did score that goal against Sheffield. I'm not disagreeing that he needs to use his right foot more, but he's shown that he can do it with his weak foot and scored one of the most important goals of the season. Probably, I know that that's what we're reduced to. The most important goal, one of the most important goals of the season, is a bloody comeback goal in the 90 plus 10 against fucking Sheffield United. You know what I mean? Like what are we right now? But I think with Kulu, I don't think he should replace Maddison as the number 10. I think, like you said, Dave, they work well. They could work well together. And I think that, I've said it before, I think we're wasting Sarr and the attack a little bit by playing him as that second 8. I think that I personally think that I'd like to see him be trained a little bit more as the sort of 6th player. You know, he's still young. He needs to fill his frame out a little bit more. But, you know, he's incredibly athletic. He's hardworking. He's got a decent pass on him. But I don't think he's necessarily a creative player. And I think that it works in some games. But in other games, I could see Kulu playing on that right side. You know, it gives him that chance to kind of play in a bit of a 3 with Porro and whoever's playing on the right, whether it's Brennan Johnson or, you know, maybe Mikey Moore going forward. But I think that sort of interchange of having players that I don't really think Brennan could do it, like sort of switching into that 8 role and playing a bit more like a creative like 10. But, you know, Porro can easily do that sort of change. We've seen him play right wing for Sporting. We've seen him play right back for us. We've seen him play midfield for us, basically. So he's definitely got the ability to do that. And Kulu, I think he's creative enough and defensive enough to kind of do a similar role. So I'll be interested to see them two. And if we sign someone like an Eze, maybe Eze replaces Maddison for certain games or vice versa. I'd like to see them all kind of play a more fluid role.
I know as well that Dave, even Paul Markey, sees Kulusevski as a future kind of striker or someone you could even play down the middle. So that's also something that you might even agree with on that one. Just also as well, Davy Shire gifted out yet again, even another membership. Big up to you, Davy Shire. We have to see some new people on the fan show. Martin Walton was even saying that he needs a haircut and a flat cap beforehand. You can go camera off, Martin Walton. We would love to see some people take advantage of Davy Shire's generosity here. And then we also look at, I believe Paul Markey saying here to you, Johnny, just quickly, that you and him share some of the same glassware.
We do. Where is? I'm just looking for the screen. Hang on a minute.
Well, look, two great minds think alike. I know Paul Markey, he does have an eye for a good player, to be fair to him, and he has an expert eye over the midfield, you know. So, yeah, I would think him and Johnny think alike. I think they're from the same sort of school. And I don't want to put, you know, any age on you, Paul Markey, but I presume the same maybe sort of era. You're talking each other's language. Maybe we've got a bromance going on here.
Could be. I mean, I wouldn't blame him. You know, Johnny speaks a lot of sense. A user saying these young signings, it feels like all the car parts are being changed, but the same old engine is yet to be upgraded. Come on, where's the supercharger? Anybody kind of feel the same way as a user, that it's just a different car that Spurs are building, but it's still not going to be that fast?
No, yeah, come on. This is different analogy. Go on, Dave. You go.
I was going to say, look, you know, right now we're a Kia, right? Exciting, you know. It looks good, you know, but it's solid and reliable. You know, it's going to get you where you need to go to with a few bumps and bruises along the way. But what we want to, you know, is to be able to upgrade to a Porsche, you know, so that we can start purring, you know, start roaring up front, basically. A user, I'm completely with you on that. And look, hopefully it comes, lad. Hopefully that Porsche will be delivered over the next couple of weeks. What I would say is I wouldn't expect anybody to be announced over the next week and flying out to Korea. I don't think you'll see much more now until maybe they're back from pre-season tour in terms of signings. But you know what, A-user? I am nervous. My bottle is gone. I've held out for as long as I can. I'm not going to lie. However, there's still a part of me that thinks they're coming, and I'm not giving up there. I'm not giving up yet, man.
Sometimes, Dave.
Under hitching, the car was billowing black smoke. We had wound up windows, right? And we had a knob to tune into the radio, right? That's where we were, right? You know, we've moved on there. You know, we've even got hubcaps and shiny, you know, shiny car. Look, the components are moving. It's, you know, the jury's still out on Big Ange. I'm not going to put Ange down. I want to give him every hope that he's going to, you know, really do something here. But, you know, I think he's got better tools than any manager has had for a long, long time. Poch, in my opinion, was never supported. Whatever you want to say about Pochettino, he took us a long way, and we played some of the most exciting football I've seen in my lifetime as a Spurs fan, and he was never backed. Ange is getting backed. So I really don't want to hear any excuses. When I look at what he's got there and the talent, and I look back to what Mourinho and Conte had, you know, let's be serious, right? He's been given a good crack at the whip.
No, and I was just going to say, just quickly, I agree with you that he is getting, you know, he has got more at his disposal. But I was just going to say, Johnny, hold that thought, because we're going to come into this next about whether you trust Ange and the youths and stuff like that. Because I know, you know, you sort of sent me a message earlier on saying this is something you would like, you know, to incorporate and discuss. So we are going to get onto it. So hold that thought. People, also take your time and listen to what Johnny has to say before you shoot him down, because I know there's a lot of people that love Ange, just like me and Jack do, but actually listen to what he has to say. But Jack, you know, we've got Dermatron in here as well, and then we'll kick on.
I was just going to say to a user before you came in, Dave, that maybe Paratici was actually our Pimp My Ride guy for the academy and the team in general. I think you did a fine job, a user. Really appreciate your support. And Dermatron's as well, saying the transfers will happen, lads. We will get the players we want, and the young players we have will rise. We will win with the kids of 2024 and under Ange. And he also says as well that Tony is not going to Arsenal. He wants Spurs. Come on, you Spurs. When it comes to this academy, Dermatron, I do feel like we are going to see a lot of them actually even feature this upcoming season. As much as they are young and unproven, some of them will really surprise, I think, the first teamers, where they'll be challenging for those starting spots, and they'll kind of give them a bit of a shake or give them a bit of a reality check of what's to come. And with the Bergvalls pushing for Madison's spot, you have Archie Gray, I think, is going to be pushing for Yves Bissouma's spot, and plenty of other guys like Dragusin, right? Who we know Romero is an exceptional player, but Dragusin's also very talented for his age, and he'll be gunning to try to get some minutes this season. So we have good competition and good players to be able to compete for these various roles in the team. And it's only going to produce a really good team and a really good squad mentality, at least in my opinion. And then I hope that we start to see some of the bigger signings to come. Plenty would argue that the outgoings that have happened this summer could be an indication that there are big signings to come. Then again, though, the rumor mill has not been very kind to us from what we've been able to tell, Dermatron. Then he also ends with Tony is not going Arsenal. He wants Spurs. Come on, you Spurs. Does anybody believe Ivan Toney could actually end up in a Spurs shirt? I'm not so sure.
I think he could. I think Dermatron's seeing what TalkSport was saying, because I had a quick look after that comment came up saying that he wanted Arsenal. Because from what I remember, didn't he have a meeting with Arsenal and Arteta, and they said they didn't like it, or something about him wasn't right. Look, I can see it happening. We've spoken before about needing players that have that swagger, have that arrogance. Tony had like 5 minutes for England in that game and came on and made a huge difference. He's slightly different to a Richarlison in the sense that they have they're probably in the game for similar roles. They're bigger players who like to get around, but Tony, he's got that presence about him, and that like I say, that swagger that's like, I'm gonna do this. I want the ball. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna look at the goalkeeper and not even look at the ball when I take a penalty. I do think that we could get him in. It's just about really if Ange is convinced, and we don't really know what Ange wants, but I can see it happening.
I'd also add to that Brentford also signed their striker from Club Brugge earlier on in the transfer window, so they already have their replacement in. They're just holding out for as much as possible, and it seems like Tottenham are waiting to pay as little as possible, so this could run to deadline day. Yeah, but I hold out hope I'll see Tony up front.
Well, but definitely we want the large man up top, the guy who can be able to win the knockdowns, the guy that can hold up the ball, and Ivan Toney is certainly a candidate that can do that. But let's get on to one of the very important questions of today that we're going to be asking Johnny, Sam, and Dave, and it's in the title of the show, I believe. Is Ange, guys, giving youngsters opportunities because he actually has genuine belief in their talent, or is this actually a board directive that's being pushed onto Ange Postecoglou? I'm going to start with you with this, Johnny, because I know you're keen on it.
Yeah, look, I just remember, I think it was the Everton game. I sent you guys the transcript. I don't know if you've got it. If you've got it, I'll look it up. Hang on, just quickly while I'm.
I'll get it for you, Johnny.
Yeah. Basically, Ange, I didn't do the whole article, so I'm not trying to be unfair here. But he said in February, I think we've got a lot of work to do in our academy. And when asked if the talent in the academy is a golden generation, he said, I don't think we have the production line other top clubs have. Certainly not. Even currently. That's why we're investing in youth. So my question is, right, okay, this was his statement in February. We saw that he was giving no youth a chance even when we were up. A couple of minutes here, a couple of minutes there. My theory, rumor, whatever you want to say, when he threw his toys out the pram after the Man City game, and he turned around and he said, my eyes have been opened to a lot of things at this club this last week, both on and off the pitch. If you think that rant was purely and simply about a few fans hoping that Man City won and we lost, you're very much mistaken. Suddenly, he's embraced this youth like it's popped out of a bag. It's the same youth. It's the same youth he's been seeing. Listen, I went to the under-21 final. Was Ange there? No. I went to the under-18 final. Was Ange there? No. I went to the under-18 games. Was he there? No. Tottenham Arsenal, was he there? No. Right? I have never seen Ange in any of the games that I've been to see in the youth academy. Now, I know Poch went to see them. I know other managers go to see them. If he believed in them, like we're supposed to believe all of a sudden, Well, I don't buy it. He's not the Messiah, right, who suddenly embraced them all. I heard the stories about Australia and all the rest of it, but he what has happened since February to now? Are you certainly someone's come in and sprinkled magic dust, and all of a sudden all these people that he said were not good enough even now are suddenly game changers, right? Because I don't believe that's possible. I think he's had a directive, and why wouldn't he have that directive? To ignore the youth right now would be a catastrophic mistake. Okay, all managers want to win because their jobs depend on it, right? And 3, 4, 5 defeats, you could be on the verge of losing your job. So I understand that, but he can't be seen ignoring these youth team. Now, the tour has been very favourable now because there's a lot of players who've been away on international duty who haven't come back. And he's giving players the opportunity to state their claim. Unfortunately, the likes of Archie Gray and Jamie Donnelly are not getting the chance to shine in their true positions. Jamie being the 10 and, Archie Gray probably the 6, the 8 or the right back position. They're not getting that chance because there's no one there. So they're showing themselves as defenders. The fact that Richarlison has been injured has been favourable to Will Lancashire, right? To Will Lancashire to show what he's got. And we saw that with the finishing. I don't believe for 1 minute that he is suddenly a light bulb's gone on. He's been told that he has to embrace it and mix it in with, they're not 1 year. Anke, I hear what you're saying, but we're not talking about 1 year older, right? We're talking about February, right? March, April, May, June, July, 5 months, okay? Players don't develop massively in 5 months to be a definite no to a definite yes, okay? The talent is there. I'm not slagging Ange off here. I'm just saying, if I was him, I understand why he would want to focus on producing the talent in the first team. And if he's forced to via injury, even during injury, how many of those youth players they've got a chance? Only towards the end, and even then it didn't make sense. Bringing Jamie Donnelly on with a few minutes to go with Man City 3-3, and yet when we were needing him to come on to have a game, he didn't get any minutes. Mikey Moore coming on, in the games the Man City, it was a contradiction.
Yeah,
I'm grateful that it's happening. And hope he continues to embrace it, because I think a lot of people, I for one, will be very upset if when everyone comes back, everyone goes. I'm not saying some don't need to go out on loan, to make that clear, but I don't want to see them all being chucked back into the Prem 2 again next season.
Dave, what do you think? Has Ange Postecoglou, like Bart Simpson in The Simpsons, forced to write "I will play the youth 1,000 times" on the chalkboard? Is that what happened with Daniel Levy? Has Daniel Levy pushed a directive onto him?
No, I don't think he. I think it's a bit of understanding from both sides. And this is where I probably differ a little bit from Johnny. Me and Johnny usually sing off the same hymn sheet when it comes to Paratici and the youth, but this is where I see maybe a little bit differently is with Ange Postecoglou. For me, a lot of them academy stars signed contracts before Ange Postecoglou even came to the club, under Greta Steinson and Paratici. And with Paratici here, there was sort of put out there that this is going to be the directive going forward. And for me, I think, when Spurs were looking and speaking to people like Ange Postecoglou and into the interview process, I think it was a part of, the requirement that a manager would come in here and eventually try to work with a lot of the youth that we've got and bring them through. Now, I get the frustrations last year that Johnny has with us not turning to some of the youth. I heard them myself. Upon reflection and looking back, though, I do think that Ange Postecoglou has maybe exposed to the board, these players have to go. They're not good enough by sticking by some of the players like Skip and Davies and Højbjerg and people like that, Emerson to a degree, and now once he clears them out, then that sort of clears the pathway for him to be able to develop the youth. So I do think there is a bit of understanding when he took the job that this would be a process he would undertake or incorporate into what he's doing at Tottenham Hotspur in the long term, because the club did say when they hired him, they had the long-term view and ambition with him when they brought him in here. Then I would also argue, Ange Postecoglou does have a track record of working with youngsters. He was a young Socceroos coach, I think, for the under-20s or under-21s. And a part of that job was identifying and, nurturing Australia's best underage players in that process. So he has track record. At Celtic, he brought up young Ralston, gave a couple of other youngsters their debuts over the course of campaigns and stuff like that. When he was in Japan, he worked with young players as well to a degree. So he does have that track record. And I think last season was about him coming in, having an understanding of the squad, who is good enough to play this system over the course of the season, who isn't, clear them out, and then start incorporate some of these youth through. So I don't think Ange has been blindsided. I do think it's been a board.
I don't know, blindsided. I wouldn't say blindsided. Would you say, my point is, do you really think he needed to say what he said? Because if you're in the youth academy, when that comment came out, I made a big thing about it when he came out. If you're in the academy and you hear him say that, you're striving to do all you can to get in the first team, and you hear your boss say that, he's not one that's coming down and watching you. He's watching you training, but he's not watching your games. Does that send the wrong message? I'm not saying he's not going to play I'm not saying he's not going to play these players. I'm not saying he's got no interest in it. I'm saying it didn't seem like he had any interest in it, and he was derogatory about it before. Now all of a sudden he's embracing it en masse.
Do you know what, Johnny? I'm going to put it down to Ange Postecoglou being angry and not thinking rationally when he made them quotes after the Everton game. That's what I would like to think, because I will say he did make quotes earlier on this season about Jamie Donnelly and Alfie Dorrington, that when they're training with the first team, that there is no drop off in level, which was many people's concerns. And he even went to name check Dorrington about coming along better than what many people maybe expected. So there is a bit of a contradiction in there for sure. And that's probably where this curiosity comes around. But I still maintain, I think Postecoglou was understanding that, what the club's long-term ambitions were under Paratici, and that his vision would have to align. And for me, I think that's one reason why he got the job, because this was a process that was going to undertake. Because, look, if we know Daniel Levy the way we know him, he's already ahead of the situation of paying 50 million every single player we want to take from the Premier League that's English to come in here and meet the homegrown quota. So we know he's going to get ahead of it and look for someone to develop at least 3 or 4 of these guys. So he doesn't have to keep dipping in and paying 40, 50 million a time for, and paying over the odds for some of these youngsters. And that's why I also stress the fans out there. That's why it's important to get these guys in. We moan about us going for 50 million for Gallagher, 50 million for Ramsey, 50 million for Brendan Johnson. But we're stuck to this because no one wants to give a pathway to some of these youngsters. And in order for us to be able to progress and actually use the money where it should be to sprinkle the team with star talent, this is a process we have to undertake. And I've no doubt Daniel Levy was ahead of that and said to Ange, when he was interviewing for the job, this is part of the process. And that's why Postecoglou got it, because of his track record. And I don't think he shied away from it either. I think he embraced it in the meeting. That's just my opinion.
I just wanted to get Sam's quickly, because I know before we end off on this question, Sam, do you think it's been told directly by Daniel Levy or someone from the board to embrace the academy, to start playing the youngsters? Or does Ange genuinely believe in the prospect and the talent of these younger players? What do you think? Is he being forced to do this?
I think it falls somewhere in the middle. So I kind of agree with both the choir boys. I think that
Splinters.
I think that what Johnny was saying about, bringing Donnelly on and bringing Mikey Moore on against City, especially after what he was saying before and after that City game, with the how the fans and people at the club sort of responded to the situation we were put in, admittedly by ourselves, with that City game. So you kind of wonder why he did give Moore a chance in that game, and why you would bring on Donnelly in games that kind of hang in the balance rather than, like you say, bringing them on. Admittedly, that's probably because he's not going to bring them on in games that we were up in, because most games we weren't up, we were down and having to come back. but at the same time, and again, I'll slightly disagree with Johnny here. Well, not disagree, but kind of move on his point a little bit, where he was saying about
It's okay if you want to disagree with him, Sam. It's okay. He's
no,
not going to.
it's not.
I'm not
It's not really
anti-Ange,
disagreeing.
by the way,
No.
guys. Just as I am not anti-Ange. I'm not Ange outright. I'm just saying there was a swing. The point here, sorry, mate, is the swing between the comment in February and suddenly the embracing en masse of every single youth player we have. Right? What happened? We know that there was an outburst on that Man City game where he said his eyes have been open to stuff on and off the pitch that have really, whatever. And I just think that was one of the things. He will embrace it. I hope he wins with it. Sorry, Matt. Go on, carry on.
No, I agree with you, and I that's why I'm saying I don't want to disagree with you, because
you can.
I do.
Can.
No, but I do agree with what you're saying in terms of, I do think that maybe after there has been some meetings where they might not have sat him down like a naughty schoolboy and say, you need to play the youth. But I do think that they would have said to him, like Jack and Dave have said, we brought you in to have some sort of focus on the youth, right? But where I will sort of talk about your point with this summer is young players need some sort of luck to get their chance, right?
Yeah.
You can't just get into these teams always on merit. You need to have some sort of injury, or these players that aren't here at the moment because they're on holiday after the Euros or after the Copa America. So they needed to have that sort of luck that Ange is able to now see them for the last month or so, and actually see where their ability is at. I know that a lot of these players have played with the first team in training over towards the end of the season, and he was saying he was quite impressed with them, but they need to take these chances now, right? So that's why you're seeing players like Bergvall coming in. I know he's not necessarily one of the academy players that we're talking about, but everyone's been pretty impressed with Bergvall, because he's kind of come in and he's taken the game to the opposition, albeit these teams aren't the kind of quality that we're going to be playing week in, week out. They're obviously an improvement on the quality that he's played in his career so far. And the same with Moore, and Lancashire as well. These players are coming in and they know they need to do something to actually bring about a position for them in the first team, which is why you've seen, them really take the game to these oppositions, and you've seen a real difference between the first and the second halves of these games. Obviously, that's also to do with the fact that the other teams are making changes. We're making changes, going from playing two centre mids as a centre back, and then Donnelly at left back. We're actually bringing on players that play in those positions, and it's helping them. But they need a chance to prove themselves, and I think that he is willing to give them a chance to actually go and take this. Whether he ends up putting all these players in, as soon as the season starts, I think is highly unlikely, right? And I think we can all kind of agree with that.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm sure that most of the fans will agree with that as well.
Yeah.
But we need to take charge with these cup competitions and accept that, okay, we're not going to play our full first team. We shouldn't be doing a Fulham of last season and making 9 changes. But I would like to see, and I'm sure we'd all like to see, 3, 4, 5 of these youngsters or players that are sort of on the fringes of the first team squad, who we have belief in, actually getting a chance to come in and make a name, not just with a bunch of other players who are just like them, but with a handful of first teamers that actually can help them through the game, so they're not being tasked with the maturity of seeing out these games and actually doing something for us in the cups. And that gets the fans off their backs as well, because they're not thinking, Phillips, he's made a mistake at the back, because he's got someone like Van der Ven or Romero next to him that's kind of coaching him through the game on the pitch, right?
I think most people are misreading what I've said here totally. right? I can see some of the comments in there, right? I mean, they're just totally like, boom, it's gone over their head. Look, I'm not trying to be insulting here, and I'm not trying to insult Ange, right? I'm just saying what happened. We all know that he was analysing the squad. We all know that he had to take his time. I got no issue with that. The question is, what happened in February, between that time in February where he said that there's no one that's good enough in that squad to step up, right, to now summertime, he's looking at them all and talking favourably about them all. I'm not saying they're all going to start. We're just trying to ask and ascertain the question, has he been told upstairs, look, you know, we brought you in to use the youth, you have to use them. Is he being pressured? Or is he going to find it in his own way? We're not Ange out. We want Ange to succeed. We would just like, there's certain players we feel like didn't get an opportunity that might have. They're getting the opportunity now. And as a couple of you said, we will know exactly where we are in the first 2 or 3 games of the season. If all of these youth players are back in the under-21s, we'll know we haven't really moved on. And if a lot of them are sat on the bench and they're playing and they're getting minutes, we'll all be very excited. I, for one, will be.
I think it's simply put. Sorry, Sam, go ahead.
I was going to say, maybe it comes down to the mentality of some of these youngsters. You know, they've heard the comments of Ange and thought, you know, I'm going to show this guy that I actually have something about me. So, although, as I said, I do think that there would have been meetings where the board have kind of lent on Ange a little bit to say, we want you to use the youngsters. He obviously he's here to win, right? He's made that clear.
Correct.
He wants to win something.
Yeah.
So he's got to find that balance of bringing the youth through, but also maintaining a
100%.
strongly defined level of performance that doesn't affect the team to bring all these youngsters in. So we might only see 1 or 2 of these youngsters actually get a chance this season, right? We don't know what's going to happen. But they, like I said, they might be showing, you know, the maturity needed to actually take what Ange said, not necessarily as criticism, but as motivation to be better players.
Very good point. Very good point. I think we'll see them in Europe.
Yeah. And I was just going to add as well, you know, we've got one more question left, and it could be the complete opposite. You know, it might not be Ange wanted to give these guys a chance. The last question that we're going to be moving on to is, you know, could it be Spurs, Daniel Levy, planning for the future to have more income? You know, so, you know, Johnny could be right here. Maybe Ange has been told to big up the youth so he can start getting 30, 40 million fees for it. But we're going to move on to that in just one moment. But Paul Markey's getting back to us. You're at one half, the other half of your romance, Johnny. What's he saying, Jacko?
I was just going to say, just quickly, just summarize Johnny. I think he's just pointing out maybe a slight contradiction, you know, maybe what Ange has said from then versus now, right? And that's totally understandable, even if you believe in Ange or not, right? You know, there's maybe a contradiction, and, you know, why has he changed his mind? Paul Markey, though, saying to you, Johnny, I'm from the Alan Muller days of Dave Mackay era 66. First game was in 1957 final when we beat the Posh Boys 2-1. And I was saying this to Paul. Dave Mackay, when we just recently played Hearts, he's regarded by one of the announcers as one of the greatest ever Scotland players. And of course, I can't speak to that, but I found that to be very, very high praise, considering at one point Scotland have had many golden generations and are actually one of the founders of even this beautiful game, right? And the fact that Dave Mackay is regarded as one of the best ever Spurs defenders, but then also one of the best ever Scotland players, I think is really high praise. And that's a good era to be from.
One of Spurs' best ever players. I was a guest at the Brighton ballroom a few years ago now, about 5 years ago now, before the COVID. And Alan Mullery was in there, and I just happened to say I was a Spurs supporter, and he said, who's your old-time favourite? And as soon as I said, you know, we're talking about defenders, and he thought I was going to say Graham Roberts, and I said Dave Mackay. And it was like a light went on inside, and he just went on. I had to say, I've got to go out and watch the game, right? But he just went on and on about how amazing Dave Mackay was and what an animal he was, and he played with a broken leg. And you know, he was above and beyond. He would have been a legend in today's football as well because of his mindset. But I'm nowhere near that. I wasn't even running around in a womb in 57.
I know that he's even one of Kuva 99's favorite ever players. A lot of kind of experienced Spurs fans regard him as one of their favorite ever. And if he were still alive today, I wonder if he would be a big fan of Romero, considering that Romero might be the closest thing we might have to a legendary Dave Mackay today. Paul Markey, though, asking you, Dave, he says, I'm 66. First game was in 1967 FA Cup final when we beat the Posh Boys 2-1, beat Spurs, midfield of Glenn Hoddle, Mullery, and Ardiles. I mean, Dave, it'd be nice to have a Glenn Hoddle in this team, maybe in an Ange.
Not in 66, he wasn't. Not in 67, he wasn't.
No.
I think you're getting confused. Yeah.
Is he maybe saying that the 67 FA Cup final midfield beat the midfield of Hoddle and Ardiles? Maybe that.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. But he's put
Dad
Mullery.
won't be too happy.
The midfield of Hoddle, Mullery, and Ardiles. Oh no, best Spurs midfield. Hoddle, Mullery,
of all
Ardiles.
time.
Beg your pardon. Yes. Beg your pardon. Yeah.
I just want to say about what Jack just said, kind of building on Johnny's point as well. I don't think it should be a concern. I'm not saying that you are saying it's a concern.
Yeah, I'm not.
I don't think it should be a concern that Ange is potentially willing to backtrack on what he said, because what I think what a lot of fans were most concerned that he might not backtrack on was what he said after the Chelsea game, which was, we could have 5 players on the pitch and we'll play exactly the same way, which then became a foundation for other teams to go, all right, well, if you're going to play this exact same way, we'll just basically study how you play. We'll pick up the 1 or 2 patterns that you go to pretty much every game. Correct. And we'll just play that way. So if he's willing to, change his tune a little bit about the youngsters, then hopefully he's willing to change his tune a little bit about that and actually build a little bit on the. I'm not saying that his system is bad by any means. I'm just saying a bit more variation is clearly necessary. And I think that after a reasonably difficult first season, obviously after a strong first 10 games, I think he has seen he is going to need some sort of adaptation to what he's done in the past, because the Premier League teams are no pushovers, and it's only going to get harder when we start to play hopefully the later rounds of cup competitions, when these teams, it's all or nothing in these games, because you've got one game to prove yourself or you're out.
Yeah.
And
sorry, go on. No, go on.
No, Dave. Yeah, what were you about to say?
No, I was just going to add to that point, that Sam's making just quickly, and that we've accused managers of Jose and Conte being too stubborn and stuck in their ideas and stuff. That we want someone that's a bit more flexible. So maybe if those who accused Conte and Jose of being too stubborn, maybe they should actually praise Ange if it is like Johnny has said, maybe maybe he's changed his mind or something like that. But Paul Markey, Hoddle, I was lucky enough to get his signature from my old lad, so he can die happy, along with Ardiles as well, actually. So he's a very happy man, too, of his favourite players. Big up King Hoddle. 66, I would argue, still a young chicken. I still think you've got plenty of life in you left, my man. They do say life starts... No, they do say life starts at 66 when you retire from work, Johnny. So, everything's open for him. You can get up in the morning, listen to the birds sing, and have a midday nap.
Don't see that next week. Where is he?
The world's his oyster. The world's his oyster. So, Paul Markey, you're still a young pup yet, my man.
And I'd also say, too, with Glenn Hoddle, he's got probably some of the best hair that I've ever seen of any former footballer of Spurs. The hair genes on that guy is absolutely incredible, Paul Markey. So not only the footballing ability, but also the hair genes really have shown throughout the years. But we do have one last question that we're going to be asking you, too. And then we're going to move on to our lovely members' questions. So any of you members that did send in a question or haven't done yet, now's your opportunity to do so if you wanted to send one in last minute, because we are going to be honoring that. It's a great perk that you guys get to have, where we get to do some last minute questions for all of our lovely panelists here. But I'm going to be asking you, Sam, and then we're going to go to Johnny. Many fans accuse Tottenham of not having a succession or contingency plan. But when you look at the quality of youngsters outside of the first 11, what do you think? Is this Tottenham's maybe attempt at trying to go for a succession plan, a very strategic one at that? Or is this just a future profit scheme, maybe made by Daniel Levy to try to mimic what like Man City and Chelsea have done by, getting a lot of profit from their academy players? What do you think this is, this youth strategy, this youth recruitment? Is it to actually provide a succession plan for the current first team 11? Or is it just a money-making future profit scheme like other clubs have used it as?
Great question.
Okay, before it is a great question. Before I answer that, I will also say I think that Asu Akoto will win the best hair of ex-Spurs players going forward. But I think we're in the sort of early stages of a potential succession plan, right? They're obviously trying to focus on youth now, whether that is to do, as you say, like a Chelsea, Man City conveyor belt of, tens, 5, 20 millions here and there, just to sort of boost that transfer kitty a little bit. We'll have to wait and see, but I know people are looking at this signing of the young Korean winger as, and maybe negatively from some of the comments that I've seen, not necessarily in our chat, but on Twitter, that, it's a classic money grab from Daniel Levy to go and buy who could be the next Son of South Korea, get all these fans in for the future. I'm not saying that I agree with that. I'm just saying what I've seen online. I think personally that we ourselves, and also football in a wider sense, kind of neglect a lot of these sort of smaller football nations. Look at how people were treating Ange when he came in. Who's this Australian geezer? What does he know? What's he done? He's managed in Japan. He's managed in Scotland. He's managed in Australia. How's he going to come in and ever do anything in the Premier League? So I'm not against going to these other countries and looking at players that have high potential, and you get them in early enough, could be bred to become the future stars of Spurs. When we signed Son, a lot of people were quite concerned with him. He looked scared. He wasn't necessarily finishing a lot of chances. And look what he's grown into, like an ambassador of the club, sure, but also, one of the most likable football players, blessed with some of the best finishing I've ever seen. I'm relatively young in the grand scheme of things, and didn't really get to watch that golden generation maybe like 10, 15 years before I started watching football. But we clearly have some sort of plan in place. Whether it works, bringing these youngsters through, like I said, we're in the early stages of signing these youngsters. I don't know if we'll ever get to the point where we're doing a Chelsea or like a Real Madrid or Barcelona, where you go and sign some unheard of Brazilian youngster that has played 10 games in his career for 50 million or whatever, right? But that's clearly a direction that football is going. And if we're not going to be a team that goes to sign the biggest names every season, which I don't really want. Obviously, I'd love us to go and not buy the league, but buy players that give us position, like a strong foothold in challenging for the league and trophies. We all want trophies. The game's about success, right? So as much as I and everyone would want these big signings, we also do need some sort of succession plan. Look how excited people were getting, when Skip had that season at Norwich, and Daniel Farker was saying what an unbelievable talent he was. We had some of the managers when they came in saying that Dane Scarlett was a great player, that Troy Parrott was the best finisher at the club, even when Harry Kane was there. But I think that we as a fan base want some of our own to come through so that we can rally behind them, myself included. I know Delhi wasn't one of our academy products, but we signed him young, and I basically grew up with Delhi. He was 18 when I was like 14, so we watched I watched him grow as I grew, and he is probably still one of my favorite Spurs players. It's depressing kind of what's happened to him. So, I wish him all the best. We've touched on him before about bringing him back, so we won't go into that. But, I definitely think that there is a case for blooding these youngsters through and giving our fans someone to get behind that they can make into, the new Harry Kane, and hopefully they can fulfill some sort of potential. Whether it's even half the potential of Harry Kane, I think we'd be happy, right? Because Kane's a freak. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand.
Okay. No, I was
Johnny?
just going to say, my idea of succession. Look, Spurs had one of the best heads of football in the business, in Paul Barber, and Levy didn't look after him, and he left, and he went to Brighton. And the rest is history. They have the best succession model in football. And when I say succession, they plan for everything. They plan for the manager leaving. They plan for the players leaving. They don't play for him leaving. For every eventuality, there is a plan. No player is sold at the club unless there is a succession of a player coming behind that can fulfill that role. Spurs, I don't want to go into it, but when Paul Barber left, Daniel Levy contacted Paul Barber again and asked him to come back to Spurs.
Wow.
But offered him less money. And he said, why haven't you got back to me? He says, because you offered me less than I'm earning now. And he said, but this is Tottenham Hotspur. We are a bigger club. My point here is Paul Barber's gone on to win various awards as head of football or what have you. For me, succession is just that. When you have Harry Kane and one day Harry Kane will leave, you only sell Harry Kane when you have Harry Kane's replacement. You only sell Christian Eriksen when you have Christian Eriksen's replacement, not going 3 or 4 years without a player. When the manager goes, like when Potter went, okay, they knew already. Everyone was naming these names of who was going to come. They already knew exactly who they wanted to come. De Zerbi was completely left field from what they were doing. And the guy that's come in now, that's come from Germany and taken the team from the first to the Bundesliga, he again was Union Berlin. Is it Union Berlin?
FC St. Pauli, I believe.
Yeah. So, he's also was the succession plan. But this wasn't something that was dreamt up overnight. This is something that he was on a list already, being monitored for the eventuality. And I'm afraid to say that Spurs are nowhere near that model as yet. Personally, I'd like to know who Scott Munn is, because where is he now should be the title of his movie, because his head never pops up. I never see him. He's meant to be the face of Tottenham Hotspur. I don't see his face. I don't even know, he looks like, what's his name from South Park with the glasses?
Mr. Mackey.
Mr. Mackey. That's right. He looks like Mr. Mackey. My point here is succession is having a plan, a concrete plan. Our plan of succession for Harry Kane was to replace him with a winger in Brennan Johnson. I'm sorry, I don't get that. I was saying for 2 years, where's your plan? Where's the plan of succession for Son? I've been asking. Okay, so maybe this kid is the plan of succession for Son, but you need to have a plan going forward. So if someone comes in, for example, next season, and they want Destiny Udogie, right? Who's going to replace him? And we then got to go out and scour 101 clubs trying to find him. I believe we are trying to do that, because if you look at centre back, for example, if God forbid Romero left, we'd have a Dragus in. We need to be only selling our players if it comes to that. If we can replace them with like-minded players, I think Brighton have sold to Chelsea over £200 million worth of players. I think it's something like that. If someone can correct me, Cucurella, what's his name?
Caicedo, they were able to sell.
Yeah, there's a few. McAllister. So look, I'm just saying, I don't think we're in that ballpark. Paul Barber has done an incredible job, and that's how a club should be run. They have a very small budget. They're selling players. They're still being competitive. Yes, they're not maybe doing as well as us, but they're on a fraction of the budget. And Bloom has got them, performing really, really well. I'd like to think that we'd like to move to that model, but I don't think we're anywhere near it at this present moment. That's what I call succession.
Yeah.
So just to clear up, so you think then it's a money making scheme for the future, rather than a succession?
No, I'm saying a succession. If you don't want to sell players, I'm not saying that we should be selling players, but what I'm saying to you is that we should only be selling players if we have a ready-made replacement waiting in the wings. It's competition for places, which is a good thing. But what it enables us to do, say, for example, we produce 2 or 3 fantastic midfielders and there's really only room for a couple of them, and we've got one left over and we can generate 40, 50 million, so be it. Let them go. We're still filling it with quality, and we can use that 50 million, one would hope, if we had identified at that point to come in and bring in a replacement in another position. And that's how you operate. And somehow Brighton have continued to operate like that. Southampton tried to do it, but they went a step too far.
I feel like, Dave, for me, on the succession plan versus kind of business strategy of profit making, a lot of us do like to say this sometimes with certain answers. I do find it to be a bit of both for Spurs, because what has happened for a lot of big clubs is that they end up overpaying for young talent because they couldn't develop it themselves. You look at that with Manchester United as a good example. They bought Rasmus Højlund and then they bought Xerxes for probably over 100 million for those 2 strikers. Instead, if you had just developed those sooner rather than later, you would only probably be paying around 20, maybe 30 million had they just bought those 2 guys a year or 2 ago, instead of just waiting for them to blow up and then be going for huge fees. And I think that's what Spurs are more or less trying to do. They're trying to not have to every single season fork over 30, 40, 50, whatever it might be for the next up and coming talent that they actually need. They need to still improve the team. They need to still improve the squad and look towards the future with young signings. They just probably don't want to be that club that ends up overpaying for a young talent that doesn't actually end up even reaching those heights, because that's what also can happen. I mean, who's to say, even like, I hate to use this example again, but Højlund or Antony, who they bought from Ajax, those sort of players, they forked over huge fees for, and they're probably not even going to end up living up to those big transfer fees. It wouldn't be as big of losses if they ended up signing those guys just sooner for 10, 15 million, kind of what Spurs are doing now with Destiny Udogie, with the likes of Pop Matasar, Bergvall, these sort of guys. Like, we have a lot of faith in them and we feel like they are really talented, but there's kind of that security, or there's that peace of mind with the fact that we haven't exactly forked over huge fees for these guys. So it's not like it's going to come back to really bite us as much as it would in other clubs' cases. So that's what I think it is for Spurs. It's a bit of both. They're trying to improve the academy, improve the prospects of their younger talent, which was already really bad. But then they're also not trying to be that club that ends up paying the Atalantas, the Leverkusens, with the Dortmunds of the world 40, 50, 60 million every single season, like some other clubs in the Premier League are. And I think it can be okay for the club to sort of look at it in both ways.
I think
you know what?
there's quite a...
go on, Sam.
Oh,
go on.
Sorry, David. I think one of the largest problems that we have is that our fan base is so divided. Maybe it's a case of the last sort of 5 or so years, which I think a lot of our problems now kind of fall back on, whether it's the actual on the pitch stuff or off it. But everyone's so divided with how they want Spurs to move forward. So, and obviously with all the social media and the vacuum that it creates, there's all these cliques that are starting to, or that are fully developed, with some people thinking that we should go and sign the biggest names out there, others thinking we should invest in youth. My question is to you guys, like, Johnny spoke about Paul Barber and what he's been doing at Brighton, which I agree with. But do you think that the fan base would have the patience, and it's another word that we fall back on, will we have the patience to stick out signing, these unheard of names every season, building them up and not becoming a selling club, but taking a leap on all these young players that, rather than buying some established names here and there? Because the most established name I think that you can really think that Brighton have bought in recent seasons would be Milner, and he's like 100.
I think what we've done is we've learned off Brighton in terms of the scouting department, how you can identify young players and keep that conveyor belt continuous through the data-led skating model that Tony Bloom and the other guy who was with him before, sort of devised, So I think we've took that process off them, and rightly so. But I also think we're trying to undertake what we've done under Pochettino. People forget a lot of Pochettino's squad at the start was based off players from the academy, youngsters that have been shipped out on loan for years, and sort of built that squad. Where we failed is we just didn't sprinkle that talent when it was needed. And I think we're on that similar process to a degree where we're building that. And then once we fill out this squad, which should happen this season, we're in a position that we don't need to spend the money on 7-8 players in the window to fill squads, that we can just start sprinkling it with that talent and push forward. I think we should be doing both, to be brutally honest. But in order to get that to that point where we head into a summer window and we're like, what areas would we actually like to go and sign in, or rather upgrade in, rather than try and actually fix the problem, And for us to get to that point, it does take a bit of patience by the Spurs fan base to get behind this project. Many people go, there's no plan. No one's telling us anything. Paratici told you what the plan was when he first arrived. But the problem was, too many people didn't like what I had to say about Paratici at the time and would rather sit there and call him a con rather than actually try and see what the project was and try and what he was trying to build. And he's actually done a very good job in terms of building that. And I think along the way, it should have been proven to Spurs fans that this model is working. Van der Ven, Romero, they're way better than the centre-backs that we had at this in years gone by. Edoji's the best left-back we've had in quite some time. Pedro Porro's the best right-back we've had in quite some time. Vicario, okay, I'm not going to shit on this because he was a good servant. So he's come in, he's picked up that, fair play to him. And then you go into midfield. Okay, question marks about Basuma. I'll leave that one there. James Maddison, I think many people will agree, was an upgrade than what we've had in the season gone by and stuff like that. So, the evidence is there to show Spurs fans that we are going in the right direction. It's just not as quick as we want because we're absolutely starving for trophies. We're a Big Six club, but yet we don't win anything. We constantly watch everyone else around the Big Six pick up stuff, and that's where the frustration comes in. But like I said, it was my own decision when Paratici came here to say, okay, I can sit here and I can be angry at every decision the club has made up until this point, or I can actually give Paratici a chance to rebuild it. I gave him that chance, and so far he's repaying it. And that's why I'm a bit more at ease with what we're doing and not as concerned maybe as many Spurs fans out there about this youth project, because I'm also being a firm believer always, if you're good enough, you're old enough. It doesn't really matter about age. And again, I think the recruitment process that we've undertook with the players that we've brought in here should probably show that as well to a large degree. But for me, to answer the question as well, Jack, I think it's twofold again. I'm with you. I think there is an element that we are looking for a succession plan, but also I think Paratici has swayed it to Daniel Levy. The reason why you need to invest money in you is because if these guys don't make it and you still brought in the best, you're talking about 20 million a pop. You can add that to your transfer budget if you don't want to use these guys. So I think it's a bit of both. I think some will come through, that we've generally invested in trying to build something, but also the ones that we don't will be used to make profit. And I think it's only smart in modern day football. It's the way it seems to be going. People question how Man City and Chelsea can constantly circumvent the rules. Well, a lot of it is supplemented by a lot of the young talent that they set off that don't actually even get anywhere near the first team, and they still send them off for big fees. So I think it's smart. But last thing I'm going to add before we're going to get on to members' questions is I don't like the idea that we're thinking already of a concession plan, because that shows me that somewhere along the line, if Madrid come calling, Spurs are going to accept a bid for Romero or Van de Ven, players like that. And correct me if I'm wrong, But I'm pretty sure we were told when the stadium was built. In fact, I know we were told because I've seen the statement ourselves. It was going to be used to generate to be able to keep our best players at this football club, so we wouldn't have to sell them. So he done it to me on Harry Kane. If he does it again, I'm going to let him know.
Well, Dave, look forward to you having to, rationalize another bad Harry Kane situation, because that's definitely been a theme, sadly, throughout a lot of summers. But let's go on to the members' questions. And thank you to everyone who has sent one in. It's a huge perk that we hope to continue to do throughout this season. So if you have missed the opportunity, feel free to do so now. I could give it a quick refresh in case you guys can get to the link in time, but we are going to be handing these questions one by one to each of our panelists as we wrap things up. And also as well, please do everyone thank Johnny, thank Sam for their contribution today. And also as well, do try to follow them over onto their platforms. I know Johnny's very active on Twitter. He's talking just earlier about TikTok as well. And so please, we'd like to see you show them some support there. And Sam, if you have anything to plug at any stage, love to hear that. But let's go to Alpesh Patel, who's just thrown in one, I think about 8 minutes ago. Thank you, Alpesh. He's saying, before the window closes, how many top signings and who do you think we will end up signing? Throw this one to Sam, because Sam, you're going to have to answer, will we sign any top players? And do you have a guess as to which ones they might be?
I think I can see us signing more than 2 players in general, but I think top signings, I think 2. And whether they're top signings to everyone, that's another statement. But yeah. I think that we'll sign 2 established players, let's say, and I think that they will. I don't know if I'm being too hopeful, but I think it will be Eze and Tony. They're the 2 links that won't go away. I don't see us signing Gallagher. I also don't see him wanting to come to us, as we're his boyhood club's arch nemesis for some reason, like we are to everyone else, But yeah, I think 2 players, and I think it most likely for me is Eze and Tony.
I am kind of leaning towards probably something similar. I'm kind of also thinking Neto might end up, sneaking in towards last minute as like a alternative. But of course, I know Johnny was talking about Chiesa, but I'm going to go to this one next. In Acoma, really appreciate your support as a member, saying, I'm starting to get worried with all these young signings and nothing that will help Ange, and I can see if results don't go our way in the season, everyone will start to beat Ange out. This is a tough one to answer. Johnny, can you calm down any of Inacoma's anxieties here?
Well, I can tell you the fans won't be in a coma; they'll be hanging off the rafters. But I just think that we just got to calm down. It's simple as that. It doesn't matter. This squad is better than the squad of the last year and the year before and the year before that. Personally, I don't think there's any excuses. We're not looking to see regression. We're looking to see some progression. We're not looking to suddenly be, winning the title, right? I would like us to have a good stab at trying to win the Europa League and having a run in the cup and try to get as high as we can in the league. If I can see that and we're playing better football and conceding less goals and we're playing more fluid and more balanced, I'd be very happy. We're going to lose football games. We're going to have games where we don't play well, but I don't think we can just blame it on the kids. It will be his system, because last season we had the best defenders that I can remember in a long time, since Toby and Jan and Carl Walker and Danny Rose, and yet we were shipping goals for fun. I believe it's the system. He needs to tweak that system, and I think we'll be fine. And if not, he'll be out by Christmas. Hopefully he's still there. Yeah. I'd like to see him last the 5 years and sail off into the sunset with a trophy under his arm. We'll all be blissful. We'll all be happy.
Beers in the cooler if we get the the trophy in that regard. Very honest answer from Johnny. Spurs diehard. I believe this is Adrian Troca. Really have appreciated your support for our channel for this long, Adrian. And I'll pass this one to you, Dave. And he says, can you name your choice of academy players to be part of the Spurs declared 25-man squad for the upcoming season?
You got the easy one.
What I would
we give you the hard questions only, Johnny. You don't get the softballs.
No.
You know, all the rumors now after this will be Johnny's Ange out after addressing that one from in the corner.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, you can't say anything, man. I'll take it back. Rewind.
When it comes to when it comes to Adrian's question, look, technically, none of the under 21s actually have to be registered. You know, we can still register a 25-man squad right now and keep 4 or 5 of them around, and in essence, make a 30-man squad, you know, if we're smart. But, you know, if we are going to pick 4 grown players from the academy, Jamie Donnelly, Mikey Moore, and if we don't sign a striker, we'll Ange.
I think you might have broke up a tiny bit on one of my favorite players that you mentioned there, Tyrese Hall, and so that's why I just want to make sure that I can, clear that up for anyone, because he is in fact one of my favorite academy players, and I think it just slightly broke up there, so we definitely needed to get that name cleared up there. But we have another question in here. Just let me go.
He's not ready. He's not ready, Jack. He's not ready.
Alexander Valaris, why is experience valued more than the past performances in this club? Eric Dyer, who played horribly for multiple seasons, was started ahead of youngsters due to his experience. And I mean, this is one I think a lot of people might want to answer. Dave, you're even clapping at this. Would you like to answer this one?
Yeah, I'll answer it quickly. I suppose we'll give Johnny the other Ute one. Look, for me, this is something I've been trying to explain for the last 3 years. Maybe it's my fault because I'm not so great with the English vocabulary and how I, put my points together. Maybe it's not the cohesive. But Alexander's absolutely spot on. This is something I've tried to say, I've heard many times, but Dave, they're internationals. They can't be that bad. And it's like, okay, if you want to ignore what you're seeing in front of your eyes every single weekend, no problem. I live on cloud 12 with you if that's where we're going, no problem. But at some point you got to go, look, they're not good enough. And it's just the old thing with age. People get older in life, the next crop come true. And sometimes there are people in that next crop that are just a man already, that are able to play at that level already. And for me, I completely agree with Alexander. We're one of the only clubs that are afraid to give any youths any opportunities. And for me, stop going with this experience bollocks and just go on talent alone.
And next up from Paul Connor, the one and only, saying, from the youth team and our new crop of 18-year-olds, who do you think will have an instant impact on the first team in the Premier League, if any at all? Not talking about them getting minutes in cup games or Europe, just the Premier League. Off to you, Johnny.
Listen, there's one standout. He's generational, and it's no surprise. I'm going to say Mikey Moore. Been going on about it since he was 15. That balance, he just reminds me a bit. Of Paul Gascoigne, just in the way he runs, and it's sort of like more of a barrel chest. He's special. That balance that he has to drift in between players, and that goal, that assist on Saturday was so rude. Coming down that left side and crossing it with the outside of his right foot for Scarlett's goal. Yeah, listen, he's just something special. I think, he's going to drift in and out of games, maybe come on with minutes to spare, minutes to go, maybe playing in Europa League. I don't see him starting, but I'd certainly see him being on the bench and coming on. And for me, he's from the academy. He's my man.
And this should be a fun one for all of us, and maybe we can answer it all together. MV Joker Davis, Edward is asking this one for you guys. Who's your favorite player of all time? Doesn't have to be a Spurs player. I will answer on this one because he's now sadly retired from the German national team. I was a huge, and still am, always going to be a huge Thomas Muller fan. Somebody that I just appreciated because he wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing of players, yet somehow that guy always was at the right place at the right time, picked up amazing assists, goals, had that scrappiness about him. They even call him Radio Muller in Germany because he's a very talkative guy. He's always telling people where to be, always communicating with teammates, probably one of the best pressers I've ever seen in my lifetime. I think in one of the World Cup games I can recall, I think he covered something like 18 kilometers or something like in a game in terms of his all-around running throughout the 90 minutes. The guy was just huge inspiration of mine, especially because I was a very bad footballer myself. So I kind of liked the idea of a guy that wasn't the most, pretty to watch, but was still very, very effective. Johnny, favorite player of all time?
Man, I'm really South American orientated here. Pele, Rivellino, Jairzinho, Maradona, and Ronaldinho, And of course, we know the Maradona and Messi. I find it very difficult to switch between them. But I'm definitely, without any doubt whatsoever, South American talent based. For me, sexy football over the brute force football. That team in 1970 for me is the greatest team of all time that won the World Cup in 1970. For me, that's the greatest team of all time. Probably closely followed by Barcelona team that beat Man United in the Champions League at Wembley. But those are my favourites, the South Americans. I couldn't put one down, I'm afraid.
I mean, half the guys you mentioned there are probably debated still to this day as the best of all time. So you definitely didn't miss there. Sam, favorite ever player?
Probably quite
Gregor
a rogue
Rasiak?
one. Probably quite a rogue one, yeah. I will just give a shout out to a couple players that obviously are up there, which is obviously the main man, Harry Kane, Gareth Bale. I used to really like Walker. It was the first shirt that I had in like 2010 or 2011. But if I'm going for my favorite player, the rogue one for me is Vertonghen. I just loved him so. I was a centre back / like fullback as well. So I don't know. There was just something about him, especially like in those European nights in the Champions League, like that game against Dortmund specifically, like sticks in my mind. Where he got the goal and the assist for Son. And that celebration, the Super Jan, like I just loved watching him play. I was lucky enough to meet him once after school. He's probably a bit like found me a bit awkward, but I didn't care. I got my photo with him, and I was so happy to meet him. So yeah, Jan's my guy.
Yeah, and for me, look, I have a few. Ronaldo, the old Ronaldo, R9, Ronaldinho, Rivaldo, absolute great players. Zinedine Zidane, absolutely what a player that guy was. But you know what? I love Modric. But I'm not going to pick between any of them guys because they all love me equally, and I just feel it's unjust. So, I'm going to, go with Johnny on this. I'm going to give you, a variety of players a collection of players that I love. And I'm going to throw Moussa Dembele in there as well. So that's my collection of players that I love.
And Lee Harvey's asking us as well, who would be your top 3 strikers that played for Spurs in your time as a Spurs supporter? Not an amazing list for me. Does Sonny count as a striker? I'm not entirely sure. He's definitely the second best goal scorer I've ever seen in a Spurs shirt. I'm going to go Harry Kane. Harry Kane has really been practically my whole lifetime. I was able to catch the end of Robbie Keane and Berbatov, so I'd probably go Berbatov, Robbie Keane, and Kane. Maybe Defoe. That's a hard, and I'll throw those 3 in there. Maybe 4.
Okay,
Johnny.
Kane, for me, it's easy. Kane, Greaves, Berbatov.
Amazing.
Well, Kane's obviously up there. Defoe, he was Jermaine Man, and I don't know, probably Crouch. Like I just something about Crouchy. Like he's just such a legend of the game. So I'll put Crouchy in there. Show him respect.
I'm gonna go Brennan Johnson, Timo Werner, and Stefan Everton. Janssen. No, I'm only messing. Look, for me, similar to Kane, to Jack actually, Kane, Keane, and Berbatov. That's not disrespecting Jimmy Greaves, of course. He was born, I could have had another life and still died and come back now, so it's been that long. So, no disrespect, but for me, that would be my 3 in my lifetime. That give me stiffies when I watch them.
Sadly, no Soldado shouts for many of us. Maybe for another time he could get mentioned in the members' questions. But really do appreciate you guys getting those ones in. Please do next time take advantage of it. I think it's a great perk for all of you guys to be able to be involved in the show and maybe get some more personal answers from us, which I think plenty of you have done. Now it's time to plug Johnny as well as Sam's business, whatever they have going on. We would love to be able to give them a shout. And please, everybody in the chat, do thank them for giving up their time this evening. Sam, I'm about to plug in your Spotify, telling everybody to follow yourself there. What's going on, or explain yourself? You know, it seems like you make music.
So I have made music in my time. I've taken a bit of a sabbatical, channeled my inner Kendrick Lamar on that. You know, when I do eventually drop again, it'll be special. But no, I'm in the midst of coming up with a new Twitter name, because I do have a Twitter, but I want to have one just specifically for Spurs. So I'll probably keep it. So I've been using the moniker of like undercover in West London. So I might do something like Spurs undercover or something like that. So look out for that. I'll probably make it in the next week or so. But yeah, for now, just my Instagram, Hank Moody _, and my Spotify is Jack Dave has kindly put in the chat. So thank you guys. I've really appreciated it. Nothing more I'd want to do on my Thursday evening.
Thank you, Sam, for giving up your time this Thursday evening and for being yet again another excellent panelist. Looking forward to many more shows with you this coming season, sir. And to you, Johnny H, what's going on with you, sir?
I'll tell you what's going on with me. I can't believe I sat here for 2 hours with this chocolate bar in front of me.
I've got one.
I bought one today. One piece. Instead, I decided I would start eating blueberries, right? I mean, that is what you call discipline. I can't believe my discipline, because that chocolate bar of days of old would have been gone within the first 20 minutes. Well, hopefully it won't go when I get off of here. You can find me on Johnny H 3232, which is my on my Twitter, which is down at the bottom there. There's a link there, and if you go on there, there's a link to my Instagram, and on my Instagram there's a link to my TikTok, which is where I post the videos and stuff. And I've also started doing the spaces again. We had a few hundred the other night, which was quite good for, I think, about 2.5, 3 hours. It was meant to be an hour space, went on for 3 hours, where people come on and we all chat. And, you know, if you're ever around when I'm doing one, come on and join in, because that's what we do. We all sit there and we all chat, and everyone has a chance to talk. And I appreciate giving us the time to come on and talk about the thing we all love, Tottenham Hotspur, our favourite pastime and our partner's favourite dread. Wish we'd find another hobby, but it ain't going to happen, is it?
No,
it's
look,
our religion. It's our religion.
Yeah, it is our religion, and look, the gratitude is on us. You know, you guys have worked hard all day. You've given up your time to come in here straight after work, you know, to do this with us. And I don't think your partners and that, and you know, the people waiting on you guys for dinner is very happy with you. But we're very happy with you, so I really appreciate it. And guys, please get it across. Check out Johnny's Twitter, one of the most active accounts I've ever seen. You know, so and when the matches come in and Johnny's there, you get the best match footage. You know, there's plenty of things I picked up off Johnny's footage that maybe I didn't see in games, like how vocal Vicario was from set pieces, and maybe others not taking on the instructions and stuff like that. Plus, you know, he's got the TikTok, the Instagram there, plenty of great stuff for you to interact with every day. And also make sure you get across to Sam's Spotify. You never know, we might see him collab with another Spurs fan, AJ Tracy, at some point. We might have to try and link that one up. But lastly, I want to say a massive thank you to all you guys out there who has tuned in today. I really appreciate it. You're all back in your droves underneath the videos we put out in the morning and back on the live show. So a massive thank you to all of you. I just want to say to the people who have decided to go the extra mile today, Davy Shire, Just a Harmless Spud, Stevie D, Danny Larson, Paul Markey, A User, Dermatron, everyone, big yourselves up, guys. Really do appreciate the support, and some of them multiple. I really do appreciate it. And if there's anything else you guys can do for us before you leave, smash that like button, share the stream out to everybody else. I think we put out great questions out there. You know, we haven't steered anyone in any direction. We've left it for you guys to put your answers in, and hopefully you've enjoyed yourself. Jack, up to you, my man.
You've done exactly what I was going to do at the end there, was just to thank all the people that have gone the extra mile to support the channel in any way that they can. And we really appreciate all the members as well that sent in their comments and their questions beforehand. Would love to see even more questions towards the end there, and we can get some even better answers out of all of us. Really appreciate all the support today, and we'll see you Friday for whatever content Dave and I have planned for you guys. But Saturday, more importantly, we're having our next watch long, pre-match build-up, all that good stuff. Would love to see you there for the game in Japan. But I think that will leave it there, everybody. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you
again,
Spurs.
we trust. We never stop. Thank you, everybody, for the support today. We'll see you next time.
Everybody